We had a 70-degree day yesterday and now 40 today. How's preseason gone so far?
Lovely Midwest, right? If you don't like the weather, just wait 24 hours and it'll change on you. But no, it's going good. The guys have been grinding and getting after it. Obviously we had an unfortunate incident with Garrett Goldbeck, the guy we brought in to be our starting shortstop. Found out he has to have Tommy John. He's going to be able to hit for us this year, but won't be able to play positionally at shortstop at least. We'll wait and see how the year progresses. But pitchers have been moving along. We got some young guys that are stepping up and doing some really good things. And from a positional standpoint, I think we're going to be better offensively and defensively all the way around.
What's maybe the biggest change you've seen from this time a year ago to now having a full year with your program?
Our kids' mentality. The things that we wanted to implement from a mental standpoint and a culture standpoint, it took last year's team a little bit to get it. These guys came in with it, and they have embodied it, and they've held each other accountable, and they work together. They love playing with each other. So that's been the biggest difference we've seen.
Can you talk about how the rotation is shaping up for the season?
Yeah, we're still in the standpoint where we're still trying to figure those things out. We've had some guys that have done some really good things for us. We have some good arms, but don't necessarily have a lot of starting experience. So we're kind of working through that a little bit to this point to kind of try and figure out how everything is going to pan out. But we have a number of guys that are returners that have done well. Brock Lucas, Ian Losey, Whistler, those guys have been pretty solid. Young man Caden Drew, who redshirted for us last year, he's got a chance to be in the mix there as well. So still kind of trying to figure that out. Like I said, we got some of those young arms that have really high ceilings but just don't have the experience. So we're going to wait and see what happens with them and kind of ease them into it. But you could see some younger guys in the rotation before it's all said and done.
Kind of on that same idea, you've had a couple of pitchers who haven't gotten as much experience the last couple of years due to injuries, guys like Will Libbert, Sam Horn. How are those recoveries coming along, and what do you expect from those guys who haven't been able to see the field much in the last year or two?
Yeah, Sam, that one's kind of up in the air just with regards to the football aspect of it. We want to make sure that we don't run into some of the things that happened previously of trying to do too much on both sides of the ball, if you will. So his throwing rehab and his progression coming back has gone tremendously well. But spring ball is coming. He's going to leave us. He's going to go to spring football. And so once he comes back from spring football, we'll kind of have to take our time with him and build him up to make sure we don't send him out there and put him at risk for injury. When you talk about Libbert, it's been outstanding. He started pitching this summer actively in one of the summer leagues here locally. Did a really good job this summer, did really well for us this fall. Knock on wood, hasn't had any type of setbacks. Velocity is good. There's still some things. Again, you're a freshman, a redshirt freshman, but you're still a freshman. The one thing that I did with him last year and that we really, really emphasized was we wanted him to take advantage of the opportunity of not playing. Don't just be passive, right? Take notes on hitters, see how games are progressing. Put yourself in a situation where you are out there on the mound, and what would you do in those situations so that next year, this year, when you do get in those situations, it won't seem completely new to you. And he took that to heart. We met several times on scouting reports that he had done based on things that he had seen in games. So I think that's going to help him with his transition when he gets out there.
Speaking of transitions, just how do you see that going for some of these JUCO guys who are coming in and jumping up a level?
You know what? It's one of those deals where it looks good until lights come on, right? So we'll find out when the season starts. Everybody's looked good to this point, and we've been having competitive at-bats. We've thrown competitive pitches. We played really, really good defense. But what happens when the lights come on and it's really go time? Based on how our kids' mentality is and some of those things, I think we should be in a good position.
You mentioned Will. What kind of an opportunity is there for him this season now that he's healthy? And you mentioned some of the things he did, mentally last year.
I think the biggest thing is what type of opportunity does he earn, right? Like what can he handle? I think long term he can do it just about anything, but in the short term, if you want to be a starter, you got to be able to go through your order twice at least, right? Can you throw your secondary pitches for strikes in hitters counts, 2-0s, 2-1s, 3-1s, 0-0 counts? And so I think there's a learning curve for him that's going to be there. But if he's able to do those things, I think his role could be any of those, right? His mentality, how good the fastball is, he could close for us as a true freshman because I'm not worried about him going out and being competitive. So I think the gamut is available to him as far as what his role could be this year.
Talk about the injury to Goldbeck. Obviously, he was starting a lot of shortstop or in fall ball. Had those Gold Gloves in JUCO. What are some of the guys you're looking at to potentially fill that role now that he's injured?
So we looked at Peyton Bassler, who was his teammate at KCK, who also had a very high fielding percentage, high on base guy, baseball IQ guy. We've looked at Jackson Lovich there a little bit. as well as Trey Lawrence, who's a true freshman for us, who is really, really solid defender. He's just a freshman, right? And so trying to get him to a position where he needs to slow the game down, but if you put him out there and ask him to go make plays, he has the ability to do so.
What's impressed you the most about how your guys have attacked this offseason?
Again, I think just their mentality, and they hold each other accountable. You know, at the end of the day, when we talk about what the culture is that we want to be, I want it to be player-led. I want them to have ownership in it. And so I've allowed them to take control of that a little bit more this year because I believe that mentally they're in the right place to do so. And they handle a lot of things that I don't need to handle, right? And so when you can get young players and young men to have that sense of accountability, I think it's the best thing in the world because as we talk to them about all the time, we're trying to teach you life lessons. Yes, right now you look at it in the scope of what it means to baseball, but the reality of it is the majority of you aren't going to play professional baseball. And those who do that play professional baseball, you're not going to make it to the big leagues. So you're going to have a chance to be a father. You're going to have a chance to be a husband and be a productive member of society. Can you go out and be responsible and accountable? And I think they're starting to grasp that. And not only are they grasping it, but they see how it correlates to what we're asking them to do on the field. At the end of the day, your job is to throw strikes as a pitcher. Your job is to make plays as a defender. Your job is to have quality bats as a hitter. And so it's really that simple, and our guys have really held on to that.
Coach, next week starting the season with the Puerto Rico Challenge. How does that kind of setting help you guys start the year off strong?
Well, first of all, it's going to be warm weather. Knock on wood. So anytime that you can start that way, it's going to be good. But when you look at our first 4 games of this season, 3 of those teams were in regionals, with one of them being in the super regional with UConn. So it's going to be a tough competitive schedule. And then when you look at Penn State, Coach Gambino does a great job, right? He motivates his guys play hard. He has that Northeast mentality, and his guys embody that. And so I know he went out and got after it in the portal and is going to bring some guys in. So to be able to go out there and face that level of competition right off the bat, I think it'll put our guys in a good position as we move through the course of the year.
What's the SEC look like this year besides, damn tough again, I'm sure?
Damn tough, right? You're adding 2 teams that are regional teams, and perennial regional teams and super regional teams and teams that have gone to Omaha. So when you just make the pool that much deeper, it becomes a very even more competitive league than what it was. The beauty about the SEC is you don't have to win the league to put yourself in a position to be a regional. Last year they took 11 teams. And you guys saw us play last year. We had 32 losses. 14 of those 32 losses were 2 runs or less. We win the right 7 games. We go from 13th place to 8th place in the SEC. We're in 8th place in the SEC. We're in a regional, right? And so what I'm trying to get our guys to understand, play the game clean. Don't worry about the other team. Don't worry about what the other team can do. Don't worry about their ranking. Don't worry about any of that stuff. We just go out and play the game the way we're supposed to play the game, and we'll put ourselves to be in a good position.
A lot of freshmen coming in. Who are the ones that have impressed you the most that you would expect to play the most this season?
So again, Trey Lawrence I talked about, he's a 2-way guy. It's 92 to 94 on the mound also with sink and with a good slider. So he's got a chance to have an impact on the team on both sides of the ball, if you will. And then, you look at Brady Piccarelli, who's a left-hand hitting outfielder for St. Louis. Done really well this fall. We'll see how it kind of works out. Again, you're still talking about a freshman, so we'll see what happens when the lights come on. And then probably the other guys, Chris Patterson, young man from Dallas, Texas, had his up and downs, and so we just got to kind of watch how he progresses through it. But those are the guys that I would say on the positional side. And then when you look on the other side, Victor Crystal from Kansas City area, right-handed pitcher who's been really, really outstanding for us this fall and leading into the spring. Brady Kellenbrink, a kid left-handed pitcher from St. Louis. Same thing, right? Been really outstanding for us. So those guys have a chance to have really huge impacts for us on the mound. And again, it's just what can they manage as the thing starts to speed up and go faster on them? Are they able to slow things down and not get out of control? And if they can, they'll be big contributors for us as freshmen.
I brought in, already talked about a couple of them, but you brought in a few guys from the JUCO level. JUCO in baseball a little bit of a different thing than it is in the other sports. So do you see a specific benefit to bringing guys up from that level versus other transfer portal type moves?
So yes and no. Obviously, the guys that are transfer portal, if they've been in a Division I institution previously, they've had that level of experience, or at least a 4-year institution previously, they've had that level of experience. So the junior college guys, I think you just dig deep into the level that they played and who they are and what their understanding of the game is, and then based on that can kind of predict. Sometimes it takes a junior college kid a year or so to transcend and get himself in a position where he understands how the game's supposed to be played. But sometimes you have some guys jump in there and go right at it. So that's why when you look at Goldbeck, right, Dad's a baseball coach. He's a high baseball IQ guy. You expected him to be able to come in and do the things that we're expecting him to do specifically on the defensive side. Defense is defense, right? No matter, now the pitching is a little bit different, but the defensive side of things is defense side of things. Same thing for the pitchers, right? You're going to get away with less, at the JUCO level than you will here, but you got to go out and you got to throw strikes and be able to put yourself in a position to get people out. So hopefully those guys are able to make that transition seamlessly and then be able to be the contributors that we thought they would be.
Coach, football had another great season. Basketball's off to a fantastic start. How does that success in the other sports bleed into the spring season?
I think, again, it's the mentality that when you look at Missouri, obviously since we came into the league, right, and I was here when we first came into the league, everybody talked about how we didn't belong and we weren't supposed to be here and all those kind of things. And when you see football have success, and football had success when we first got into the SEC, when you see basketball now having success, then that just leads to the idea of where we can be and where we should be in the place of this conference. So our guys understand that, but at the same time, we kind of emphasize to them, don't worry about all the other things, just go out and play the game the way it's supposed to be played and everything will take care of itself.
Cameron Benson, Pierre Seals, two Memphis guys, showed a lot of power during fall ball. How has their offseason been, and then how are something you were kind of looking for in some of the additions you've had to the lineup?
Yeah, so when you look at our lineup, it will be a combination of speed and power, right? There's only two dudes between Mateo Serna and Yadier, or we call him is Jedier Hernandez, but Yadi's his nickname. Those are the only two dudes that can't run out of sight, right? But everybody else, they're going to be able to run and have a combination of speed and power when it comes to that. So when you look at Cam and when you look at Pierre, those are guys that have played at the Division I level, had that experience. Obviously, last year with Cam, he was out with the shoulder surgery, but Pierre transferring over where he had, I think, 13 home runs and 16 stolen bases last year at Memphis. Those are two guys that you expect to be able to come in, and they've done really, really well, have their struggles, and they're going to have some trials and tribulations, but hopefully they get over those.
Anything else, guys?
With if I could ask one more.
Yeah.
Heading into second season, you've been in Mizzou before, taking this job. Are you where you are right now? How are you pleased with the progress? Are you ahead of schedule in terms of the rebuild, or right on schedule behind?
So I think when you're in the rebuild, the only people that set a schedule is everybody outside of the program, right? Those that are inside the program understand that it'll get where it needs to get to when it needs to get there. And you don't put any pressure on that. One of the things we talk to our guys about all the time is we cannot focus on result-driven goals. Winning is a result-driven goal. We can play the best baseball and still not come out on top. My last year here in 2015, we were 15-15 in the SEC. I think we were one of the first teams to win 15 games and not make a regional. So we did the thing. We won 6 out of 10 weekends. We were ranked as high as 12th in the country. We did all the things that we needed to do, but yet still we didn't get selected on that Monday. So we have to control what we can control, and that timeline will be what that timeline needs to be when it happens. And again, in this day and age of college sports and media and social media, there's a lot of pressure to make it happen now, but inside this building, we understand there's certain things that have to take place in order before we can even start talking about those and having those conversations. So that's where we're at. I think we're moving in the right direction, and ultimately at the end of the day, when we step out on the field, that'll determine where we are.